introduce yourself, tell us how awesome you are. She's only been in Dubai. She moved to Dubai, by the way, ladies, during COVID.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's over to you.
Hi, okay, so hey everyone. It's really great to meet you and to be part of Shop Tech. So as Michelle says, I moved to Dubai in February, which was amazing timing at the time, and then as it turned out, probably the worst decision I've made in quite a long time. So yeah, I moved with my boyfriend. He's got a company out here, and the plan, best laid plans, was arrive, get a job, get my driving license, and within about 2 months be completely set up. I knew it was going to take a little bit of time. I didn't expect that it was going to take me 6 months between leaving my old job in London to starting my new current role. So in that time I did, as I think a lot of people did, a lot of virtual conferences. As Michelle said, we connected. I started writing on the Assistant's Handbook, which is my blog, and started kind of shouting from the rooftops about Notion and how much I love it. So before I share my screen and kind of walk you through the way that it works, let me tell you a little bit about the way that I use it. Before that, let me tell you about why I hated it when I first saw it. So I was introduced to Notion by my boyfriend. He's a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and the way that his brain works is completely different to the way that my brain works. I'm a linguist, I'm half French, I speak 2 languages fluently. I studied law, so if you give me a massive lump of text to read and condense, I'm happy. If you give me a line of code that's not web design, I will kind of read it and be like, nope, don't understand it. I'm going to throw my laptop out the window. And so when he first showed me Notion it's probably about 18 months ago now, he was like, Laura, this is an organizational tool and I think you're going to love it. And I looked at it, I was like, no, don't get it, don't like it. What is this? None of this makes sense to me. He was like, well, okay, fine, but just keep it and take a look at it. And he knows that I'm quite stubborn. So he's like, look, if you don't like it, you don't like it, but what's the point in not even trying it? So about 2 weeks later, I was sat in the office and amazingly, and all my fellow EAs will get this, I had a half hour where I was like, what do I do? All my meetings are scheduled. I have time. What do I do? I was like, okay, fine, let's look at Notion. And I've actually screenshot the WhatsApp because it's since spawned all of the kind of talks and things that I've been doing, where I messaged him and I was like, I'm not saying that Notion's the best thing ever, but I've been using it for half an hour and I feel completely on top of how it works. And I've got a lot to learn, but it's a fantastic tool. So that's kind of how I got into Notion. And let me share my screen so that you can see what it looks like. So can everyone see? Perfect. So this is a page that I've created, and this is a dummy version of the page that I use with my exec. So before we go into this, let me head on over here. And these are all of the pages and all of the different ways that I use Notion. So I use it in 3 main ways. The first way is to track everything that I'm doing on the Assistant's Handbook. So this would be over here. And so anything that I'm posting, I'll note down in my calendar. Anything that I need to do will go in my to-do list. If I've got anything for branding, it will be there. And then any interesting articles I'll track as well. The beauty of Notion is that the way that I've set up this page is very unique to me. And the way that you set up your Notion page is likely to be completely different to this. But that doesn't mean that either of them are better or worse than the other. It's just the ways that you work with a Notion page. So when you first open up Notion, you are going to see something that looks a little bit like this. And it's a blank page. And blank pages are super scary. I always find it quite difficult when I'm presented with a blank page, unless I have a notebook and a pen to know how to start with whatever it is that I'm doing. The way that Notion works is that you can play with it, you can customize it, you can delete it completely if you don't like it, or you can manually grab whatever the data is and wiggle it around the page. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm just going to call this test so that we know that this is the test page. And if you hit enter, you then set up your first block. So Notion is built up of different building blocks, and I like to think of it as a bit like Lego. So you have one block, which is just this basic text, and then you could create a secondary block, which either comes below it or which you can embed within this. And so like a Lego house, you've got your first block and then a second block. And then the more you use Notion and the more you connect the pages, the more you connect the specific bits of data that you have, the more interlinked it becomes and the more powerful it becomes. So if we head on back over to the Assistant's Handbook, each of these blocks here, and you know that they're blocks because they're blue, is a page. And then when I click into that page, there will be all of the data or all of the information that's in relation to my calendar or to my to-do list. So if we click on calendar, I've set this up so that it looks like a calendar view. And this is everything that I have posted and want to post on the Assistant's Handbook. For me, being able to view it visually as a calendar means that I can then drag and drop. And if I decide that on the 16th of November, which is my birthday, that I want to do a birthday post, then I can just head on over to November. I can click on the 16th, and then I can add a page and I can have all of the information. And then because the post date is set to the 16th, it's going to sit on the 16th. If I then decide, oh, I don't want to do it on the 16th of November, but instead I want to do a yay, it's December post, I can then just grab and drag this post over into December. And then when you head over to the December month, it will show up here. There aren't strictly rules in Notion. Like I said, you can customize the page exactly as you want. You can move the data around. You can completely change your pages. So my homepage for the Assistant's Handbook didn't look like this probably about a month ago. A month ago, a lot more of the information was visible. But because I changed the way that I use Notion at work, it had a really positive impact on the way that I use Notion outside of work. And now with this, it kind of is super minimal, and I know that I can just focus on a particular thing as opposed to being distracted by, oh, I know that I've got this that I want to do on the calendar, but oh, I know that I haven't finished the branding, and I know that I've got a load of articles that I want to read. Instead, by splitting it all out, it makes it super minimal and I just focus. Has anyone got any questions so far? Am I going too quickly or is this okay? You all good?
I just asked about the calendar, Laura. If you're
Yep.
the calendar in here, is it integrated into your 365 calendar and your Google Calendar?
So it doesn't integrate at the moment, though what you can do is create a separate block where you can view it as an embed. So it works like a widget. So it wouldn't sit within this page here, but you could create a new block down here and have it embedded that way.
Okay.
Cool. So with the way that Notion works, there are kind of two main ways that you can use it. The first one is by creating a blank page. So this here is a blank page. And the second one is by creating something that's known as a database. Not like Access. I remember learning Access at school and hating it, but database is kind of the overarching term that Notion uses to describe the way that you are formatting and displaying any information or any data. So think of like my calendar, a post that you need to do, or the way that I use it within a work context is any meeting that I attend, I have a meeting notes calendar where on the today, for example, if I have a meeting to do with branding, I can go to today, click on it, and then any meeting that, sorry, let me rephrase that. On any particular day, if I have a meeting, I can go into the calendar and click on that day and make a note, make all of my meeting notes in a specific page for that meeting. So for example, on the 1st of December, I could have meeting 1, but I could also have meeting 2. And so if you click up here and add the item, you can add meeting 2. Because these have got different topics and because they're different meetings, they're going to be separate. But if I decide at a later date that actually the notes for meeting 2 and the notes for meeting 1, those meetings weren't actually that different. And so I need to find a way of linking to them. You can just grab meeting 2 and drop it. It's not going to work, but normally you can drop it into meeting 1 and create a link between the two. So I mentioned about databases and how you can manipulate all of your information and view it in a way that works best for you. So over here, I have my calendar view because this is how I like to view my tasks for posts and things. But if you click up here, you can then view it as a table as well. So I'll just give it a moment. And this is exactly the same information that I've stored on my calendar, but in this view, I'm just seeing it as a table view. And this can work quite well if you want to search or if you want to filter, because it's easier to filter within a table than it is to filter within a calendar. And if you decide that, okay, the calendar is really helpful and having the table is really helpful, but really I want to be able to view things as a Kanban board. So think of your traditional Trello boards. You can also do that by adding in a view and clicking on board. And give it a moment. And every status that you have attributed to a page, so exec tech follow up, for example, this is currently in progress because I'm in the throes of doing that. But as soon as it's completed, I can just drag it and move it over here into the completed section, which means that when I then go over to my calendar, or if I go over to my to-do list, I'll be able to see that anything that I've changed in this view is going to feed through into the calendar view, and it's also going to feed through into the list view. So I guess the easiest way of thinking about it is your information and your data will always have a point of truth. And no matter which way you view it, whether you view it as a board like this, or as a table or as a calendar, your point of truth doesn't change. It's just the way that the data is presented to you that it does change. So I know that I'm using terms like database and data, and as assistants and as business owners, we're maybe not used to using those terms. I don't mean it in the sense of an analyst would use it or a CTO or an engineer would use it. It's just the easiest way of describing kind of the source of information that you're going to want to put onto Notion. Does that all make sense up to there? Awesome. So let me show you what I find is the most powerful thing to do with Notion, which is to use it in a collaborative way. So this page here is a mock-up of the page that I use with my exec. As you can imagine, there's a lot of confidential information on there. So whilst I would love to show you how it works with real data, I'm going to show you the bare bones and how you can build it up. So I work for a big delivery company in the UAE, and I'm the EA to the COO and other members of C-suite. And for the COO, as you can imagine, his role is so broad, and so he needs to know what he needs to do each day and what he needs to focus on and the sorts of meetings he's going into and any pre-read. And so when I first joined, we kind of brainstormed a little bit and thought, what's the best way of me giving him the information that he needs to have in a way that's easy to use and where we have an archive of it. So using a Google Doc, we felt would become far too sprawling, or using an Excel sheet wouldn't have fit, using slides wouldn't have fit. And so I introduced him to Notion. And one of my biggest wins since joining my new company is that 3 of the 5 execs I support are now on Notion, which makes me really happy because they're getting a lot out of it. And for me, because this is my native way of working, it means that I've been able to slot in with their day-to-day. So this page here is a living document, and every day or every evening I go onto here and I'll create a daily briefing for the next day. I then create the briefing and I will drop my my COO an email with just the link, and he then knows to click on the link and to go in and access his Notion page. So before I show you this, let me talk to you a little bit more about the collaboration aspect. Notion is really built with collaboration in mind. The aim being that no matter how big or small the company, whether you're an individual contributor and you need to be able to share with other ICs, or you are a contractor who's moving into a company, if you need to share and collaborate on a document, you have full control over how something is shared and how much access or the permission level that you're giving. So I'm going to head over here into the top corner and click on share. And you can either share to the web or you can invite people. So sharing to the web literally means that you're going to publish the way that you would do a website, the way that you would do a blog post. And a lot of companies are using this. Notion is a really good example. Obviously, a lot of companies are using this for their recruitment pages because maybe they're a small company, they're a small startup, they don't have the funds to spend on an all singing, all dancing recruitment page, but they want to get the information out there in a pleasing way, and they want to be able to update it super quickly. So that's an example of how you can build something on Notion and just click share to web, and that's it. It's out there. You don't need to worry about publishing. You don't need to worry about any additional costs because it's just a link and it's open and anyone can access it. The same way if you had a Google Doc and you set it that anyone with the link can access, this is the way that your Notion page would work. If instead you want to add individual people, you can do that just by clicking on add people, selecting whoever the person is, and I'm going to go ahead and add my boyfriend, and you can then edit the access that they have. So I'm currently on the free version of Notion, and I don't think I'll ever need to go onto the paid version unless I want to integrate it more formally into any company that I'm working for, because you can then have a couple more accessibility options. And if you want to use it as a team, then having the paid version would work really well. But if you're just sharing individual pages, using the free version is absolutely fine. So the full access sharing option, which is only available on the paid option, means that you're giving someone access. They can edit everything and they can share everything. So think of if you're sharing a Google Calendar and you've got the different permission, this is kind of the most open way of sharing a document. The way that I tend to share is either with edit or comment. So editing means that I can share this document with Matt. He can then go in and make any changes to it, but he can't then share it on with anyone because I'm maintaining that control and that access. If I just want to say that they can only comment, it means that they can go in, they can add comments onto the Notion page, but they can't edit it and they can't share it. So comment is really helpful if you're working on a document that isn't going live yet, but that you need people's input on. So for example, when I was leaving my previous company, I created a huge handover document on Notion and set a lot of the access to comment so that my old CEO could go in and make a suggestion, that my team member could go in if I was missing anything, that our CFO, if he needed to add something or had a query, he could add all of that. And then can view means that essentially the read only. You can go in, you can view it, but you're not going to be able to edit it, you're not going to be able to comment, and you're not going to be able to share it with others. So if you have a document like this one that you're sharing with your exec, I would recommend that you share with edit so that they can go in, make any changes. If you've got a shared Kanban board, that they can move any of their actions onto the next status. So here is the daily briefing document that I use with my boss. And each of these daily briefings are pulling a different view from the master database or the master table, which is known as daily briefing. So in order to keep it super clean, I've created a little setup section up here, which is a page. And within this, I have my follow-ups and I have my daily briefings. So daily briefing, here is the table view. So in the back end, for want of a better way of putting it, of my Notion boards, I will always have these master databases or master tables where I store all of the information. I won't necessarily edit the information in this view, but it means that I have it everywhere, and this is my master version. So within this, I have created different properties. So they're essentially the column headings. So I have created a first one with created date, and this is an automatic or an automated date, which is added to your document whenever you create it. It's essentially a timestamp to say on this day at this time, this is when this document was created. And I've then created a second property, which is date. And this is where when I create a new briefing, I can set the date that it's for. So for example, this evening, I'm going to go in and I'm going to set this date here as being the 14th of October because the daily briefing is for tomorrow. This date column is going to become super important in a moment. Then my follow-ups. This is where I'm creating my master Kanban board, and these are all of the actions that I need my exec to take, or any of the follow-ups that he needs to be aware of. So this one could be by Laura Flowers, for example, very important thing that he needs to do. This one could be pre-read for X. And this one could be confirm attendance to Y. So each of these actions are showing up on the Kanban board, and you'll see that when I head back over to my main daily briefing page, that it will actually pull all of this information into a far more succinct way. Do these two pages make sense? Do you understand how they're going to kind of work, or shall I go back over that? All good? Awesome. So heading back over to the main page, and also up here, this is known as a breadcrumb. So even if you find yourself, you're looking at this follow-up page and you need to get back to your main page super quickly, you can just click up here and it will take you back. It's a really good way of understanding the way that your pages interlink, because you'll always be able to see kind of how whether one page is embedded into another page, because it will always show up here. So on my daily briefings, I mentioned that the date is going to be super important, the date that you manually assign to your page. And that's because depending on whether it's the date is today, tomorrow, or yesterday, I've set up filters on this page. So it means that any daily briefing that I create, which has got today's timestamp, is going to show up in this top section here. Anything that I create with a date of tomorrow is only going to show up here. And anything that I create with a date of yesterday is only going to show up here. So that means on any given day, I have visibility and my exec has got visibility of the things that he needed to do, or his daily briefing from today, from tomorrow, and also from yesterday. And this means that it becomes a living document. So let's go in and I'll create my first daily briefing. And down here, if you just click on new in this gallery view, a new page will open up. And I've actually created some templates. So depending on which day of the week it is, I can just click on the template and it will format my page accordingly. So the week here in Dubai is from Sunday through Thursday. So I've just created Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you can also create Wednesday and Thursday. So today is Tuesday. So I'm just going to click on the Tuesday template here. And it's going to pull the template that I've created. So here are all of the follow-ups, which I mentioned. And up here, I've created a cover, which says Tuesday. I'm going to add in a name to this page. And my naming convention is always the first 3 letters of the month and then the date. So Oct 13. As you can see here, the created date, this is the timestamp that's pulled automatically. It's the 13th of October, and then the date is October 13th. If in fact I decide that I don't want this to be for Tuesday, I actually want it to be for this Tuesday, I want it to be for next Tuesday, you can click on the date and you can manually change it to the 20th, the 27th, to whichever date you want. And then from this page, I can then add in any of the meetings. And here is where I'm putting the follow-ups from the previous follow-up page that I showed you. And in order for this section to not be cluttered, I've again added some filters. So Notion works, the way that Notion is set up, you can filter and sort your information in any way that you want, depending on which columns or properties you've set up for the database. So here I've created a very simple filter to say that I only want to see my follow-ups which aren't complete. If I instead wanted to say I only want to see the follow-ups which are complete, I would just need to change the status to is. And now, as you can see, my follow-ups are no longer there. Any filtering that I'm doing on this page will only impact the view that I have on this page. It won't impact the filtering that I have on my master document, but any changes that I do here, no idea what that noise is. Sorry about that. So any filter that I have on this page will only show here. But any changes that I make to the actual information will also be reflected on my master document. So if I'm going to say that confirming attendance to Y event, that's been done, I'm going to go in, I'm going to say, right, that's completed. So when I go onto my daily briefing, you can see that it's been removed from the daily briefing because it's no longer matching the filter. But if I head over to my master document, it's been moved over here. So having master documents and then having different views from it means that if you ever accidentally tag something as being complete, but it's not, you can always head back over to your master doc and just drag it back and say, actually, no, that's not completed, that's in progress. The way that Notion works with its templates is super powerful. So with my daily briefings, for example, I know that it's always, if you're sending someone a document and you're expecting them to look at it every day and for them to know where to look for the information, it helps to have what's the word? It helps to have a template that you're never going to miss anything, and whoever it is that you're giving the document to is always going to expect to find the same information. So any page or any template, sorry, any database that you're creating, you can create a template within that for the way that you want the information to work. So these are the templates that I've already created. So I've got one for Sunday, I've got one for Monday, I've got one for Tuesday. If you click on the little dots here, you can also duplicate it and say, right, so I know that I've got one for Tuesday. I want to create exactly the same one for Wednesday. So you can just go in, make the changes to the name. You'll see that you're editing the template. You can change your cover and say, right, I'm just going to pick this one here. And now you've got the Wednesday template. So any information that you change on the template will only work for future documents that you create. It won't change the documents that you've already created. That's just a version control that Notion have put in, so that if you've used a template but you've changed it specific to the day that you needed it or specific to the information that you had, that it doesn't impact on that, but it will only ever work for future. So I'm conscious of time. I know I've rattled through that really quickly. Have you got any questions that we can maybe jump into?
My first question is, so you're putting in your daily briefings for your execs, you're putting in there what they've got to action and what they've got to view or sign off on. So exactly. Are you dumping a document in there, or are you just dumping the actual, can you sign off on the expense reports? Can you dump documents in here? Sorry. Yeah,
you can. So one of the ways that you can do it is by just copying and pasting in a link. So either to the document itself or by creating a hyperlink. So
so it's always going back. You can't actually like throw a Word document or a PDF or anything in there. It's always going back where it's stored. Okay.
Yeah. So let me see. Okay, so for example, I've just got an image that I'm going to drop in. I've got it in my downloads. And as you can see here, I'm holding the image and I'm just going to drop it into meetings. So this is now embedded within the document. So I could say, for example, at 10 a.m. there is a meeting to decide creative, the image below. And this is now embedded. If instead I wanted to create a link to something, I could say meeting to decide creative, see pre-read.
Yeah.
And then create a link, just paste in the link to whatever Google Doc the pre-read is in. Or
sitting in Dropbox or wherever the document
exactly, wherever it is.
Yeah, okay.
Or you can also embed. So if you've linked your Google Drive to Notion, you can just click on Google Drive and choose from, so I've already linked my Google Drive and I'm going to say, right, I want to link this is a menu to one of my favorite restaurants in Dubai. I've said that I want to embed it within the document. I can then click on it and it's going to, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's going to open it up as the PDF.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that means that whether you're creating a link, whether you're creating an embed, you're not necessarily sending your exec off on a wild goose chase for him to then have to go and find the information. You can put it all in one place in Notion, and they don't necessarily need to stray too far from the daily briefing because all of the information is included there.
So you're using the daily briefings for two reasons. One is for the meetings, to really know what's happening in each of the meetings, any highlighted things, and then if any to-do stuff, whether he needs to pick up, I know he's not going to pick up the dry cleaning, but it's really, the to-do is an actionable thing that he needs to do. But are you finding that your execs, so in the to-do stuff, are you finding that they're doing them and moving them off into completed, or are you still got to follow them up? Or
it depends. It depends. So we also have a weekly connect, just so that I know what his priorities are for the week, and we can talk through his agenda. And so the follow-ups, if there's something which has been pending for a couple of weeks, chances are he's done it but hasn't moved it, and so we can just have the conversation. But as a general rule, he's got pretty good at either adding a comment to let me know that he needs me to follow up on something, or just changing the status of it so that it moves over to complete, or if it's in process, he's just going to set it as in process. It's one of the things that I found with Notion is that it's really empowered my execs to know what they need to do. And so a lot of the time as EAs, we're kind of chasing people, and the power to make sure that something happens sits with us, but we're kind of limited because all we can do is kind of poke with either with a stick or a carrot, depending on the relationship, to make sure that something gets done. Whereas by showing the to-do list, which is their to-do list, but it's also kind of mine, we end up sharing the responsibility, and the onus of making sure that something gets done is suddenly shared, as opposed to it just going into a black box and neither one of us being too sure as to who the overall owner is. One of the things that I didn't show you, but that you can do, is by assigning the document or the particular page. So I could say that I'm going to assign confirm attendance to Y to Matt, for example, and he will get an email, and he'll also get a notification within Notion to say that Laura has assigned this this action point to you. And he can then go in and either add a comment over here to say that's been done, or I need you to also follow up on X, Y, Z. Or he can also go in and change the assignation from him back to me if it's now moving over to my responsibility.
So the other thing I was just going to say, I know guys have got some questions. I'm using Notion at the moment, guys, to build my website. So my website lady's based in New Zealand, but I've also got people coming in at different points. So it's a little bit, if you've used Slack, it can be kind of similar like Slack. Like, you know, I've got a to-do list today. I have to, you know, put my logo into a different shape and blah, blah, blah. So the website ladies asked for it, but then I've actioned my creative person to actually action it. So I've tagged them in it. They weren't part of the project, but I've brought them in at this point. So it is great for project basis stuff as well. And that's why I use Notion. I don't use it for daily briefings because obviously I haven't got an exec, but I'm using for project stuff. So if someone says to me, I don't like Slack or I don't like Monday, they'll say, I love Notion, let's use Notion. So this is the second time I've used it. So, but I will say it's a collaborative tool that you can bring people in for sections, or if not all of it. So for example, if you've got your exec's diary, so if you put in there, they need to read this document for the board papers, then what happens if they've commented after it, you can then say, give it to the company secretary and say, my exec's read it, can you look at their comments? So you're not then upload it into the email, it reduces their inbox and it creates more productivity. So it's a step-by-step process. Does that kind of make sense? So anyone got any questions? Yeah. Or are we all quiet?
I have a question. It's probably a silly one.
No silly questions.
Is there an app for this as well? And does it have the full functionality of the web-based?
So this is actually the Mac app that I'm using. This isn't in a browser. This is the Mac app. So whether you view it so this is the Mac app because I like having a particular app for Notion because I have it open constantly.
There is an app there.
There is the app. which I can show you. So the Notion mobile app has come on leaps and bounds. It used to be a little bit clunky. It has exactly the same kind of layout. So here's my assistant's handbook. So this is the first document that I showed you. So it will format it so that it's kind of good for mobile. What I would say is that whilst all the functionality is there, between using Notion on a laptop and using Notion on a phone, the user experience is going to be different because you don't have as much kind of screen space on your phone. So I'll use Notion if I need to quickly read a pre-read before a meeting, or if I've got a checklist of things and I'll just go in and I'll check that off, or if I want to make a quick note about something. But if I need to work on something that's in a calendar form, or if I've got a Kanban that I need to update, chances are I'll just wait until I'm in the office and I'll do it on the computer screen. That's not because the app doesn't allow me to do that. It's just that between an iPhone and a Mac, it's always nicer to use it on the Mac when you've got the real estate to do that.
But it's great, Danelle, if you've given your exec a task to do, or you've asked a question, as soon as they've done it, you'll see that it's moved and it's completed.
Yeah, where I'm trialing Microsoft To Do with my guys at the moment. They're really, so this is kind of similar, but because they're constantly on their mobiles rather than sitting, client meetings, I just found it a lot easier for them to be able to see things quickly, action it straight away, or add a comment, like you say. So it's just another platform that I can try, I think, with these people.
I think it's I was going to say, I think it's a great way when you're trying to move communication out of emails.
Yeah.
Take crap out of inboxes, because we know, and I mean, even as a business owner, people send emails for the sake of sending it, and I hate it.
Yeah.
What this does is it creates an easy, simple, quick method to respond. I don't need a, dear Danelle, how are you? How is your earrings look great? You're looking beautiful. I just want a yes or no answer. That's all I want. And that's what this will be able to do for you.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Anyone else?
Laura, sorry, does your company have any issues with privacy or security, given you're using a free app?
So Notion has really strict rules around their I can't remember what the term is. Basically, the rules that they've set up, their encryption. There we go. See, it's 3:45 in the morning. I told you that my brain was gonna go at some point. So the way that Notion has encrypted all of their information means that it is secure, and unless you make a page visible to the internet, so like I was saying, if you go over here and share it to the web, the URL that each page generates is just a random bunch of numbers. So unless someone is very lucky and has already been given access, they're not going to be able to click in. Touch wood, so far we've never had an issue with it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Steph, you got any questions? You're using Notion, so have you got any bugbears with it, or you got any tips?
I mean, I use it. Yeah, I use it. I have a VA business, so I use it for my business, and I'm also studying on the side, so I also use it for my studying and collating all my notes. And I love it, but I guess it's hard because you can do so much with it. And so it can be a little bit overwhelming to start with. So I guess this is great that you can show us like templates on how to start. Yeah.
I think that's a really valid point, because as you say, when you're faced with a blank page, it's that, oh God, where do I start? How do I get the information onto it? And then, as I did a couple of months ago, I found out about linking databases, which is what I've done down here. And I just went massively down this rabbit hole, and I was like, oh my God, I can do all of this stuff and it's awesome. And I ended up with this sprawling mass of information, and I couldn't find anything. It was taking me longer to like search for something because I vaguely knew what the name was, but I couldn't remember where I'd put it or which view it was in. And I was like, do you know what? Sod it. Get rid of it all and start over. And that's why I now have such a minimal page, because I was like, this is stupid. If I've got too much information, it's too powerful, and yeah, it's great, but is it actually serving me? And it's not. My very first boss out of university was super into tech, but his rule was tech is only as good as tech will only make you productive if you actually use it, for one, and tech is only good tech if you use it and it makes you feel more powerful. So a computer, for example, might be the most powerful computer in the world, but if it's Windows and you're used to Mac, you're going to be useless because you don't know how to use it. And it's the same with Notion. If you're throwing everything at it, including the kitchen sink, but you're still resorting to your notebook, then there's an issue with the way that you're using Notion, because it's not making you productive anymore.
I guess a question I would have is, how do you use it when you, and I think someone else asked it earlier, is like, how do you manage your calendars? Like, what is it, like you've got obviously your invites in your inbox, and then how do you manage, what do you bring over, what you don't bring over?
So calendar within Notion is a bit of a misnomer, I guess. It's not calendar in the sense of having a living agenda like you would have in GCal. I use it very much when I want to sort my information with a calendar view, with a date view. So this is a static calendar, I guess, in that it's not pulling external information. But if I then wanted to add links to a meeting note into my GCal, I can do it that way. But at the moment, GCal doesn't feed directly into Notion. So this here is just a view of my database. It's not a view of my calendar. Does that make sense?
And remember, it doesn't have a time to do it on, whereas your normal calendar tells you at 10 a.m. you've got to go make your boss's coffee. Whereas this, it's really reminding you on the 1st of December, I've got 5 to do things, and this one, it's not telling you. So it's really you allocating the time to go in there and have a look at what you've got to do for the day.
Okay. Exactly. So with the calendar view, I don't necessarily use it as a as Michelle was doing, it's like at 10 a.m. I need to do this, at 11 a.m. I need to do this. For that, I use my GCal. But it's if I'm in a meeting and I know that, for example, I have business reviews coming up this week, and I know that for one of the regions, there's been a couple of follow-up questions from the last review that we did. And so I'll create a page within this calendar here where I'll already have put the follow-ups, so that tomorrow I can go in and I can click on that page and already have the information there, as opposed to having to remember which Google Doc it was saved in or which email it was in, because I've already consolidated it in one place. Notion touts itself as being the kind of one-stop workplace for all of the apps that you're using, and I would 100% agree with that. I only ever use Google Docs now if I need to share something with someone who isn't on my Notion page or who doesn't use Notion. I will only use Excel if I need to create a something which has got like a budget which has got a load of formulas in it, because whilst you can put formulas in Notion, it uses like Boolean logic and things like that, which makes my head ache. But if I just need to create a list of people titles and emails, I'll do that in Notion because it displays it super easily.
So Notion can currently integrate with Microsoft Teams. It is integrating with Dropbox as well. So obviously Laura's in Google Gmail world, but a lot of the Microsoft suite of products it already integrates with at the moment. Yeah. So if you want to, drag a document down for him to review, you can either drag it straight in or you can send the link straight to Dropbox or wherever. So it's sitting there and you just go straight to it. Is it using Slack? No, I don't think it's using Slack at the moment.
There is the integration that if you change something, you can get pinged on Slack.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So if you do something in Notion, you can integrate it into Slack, and it can let the person know in Slack that you've already updated or changed it. That's right. You can do. Yep. So it's just figuring out what integrates with your current systems and what you're using. Yeah. So it is very user friendly in the Microsoft world, I will say, because that's what I'm in. Yeah.
It's come on leaps and bounds, and the story of Notion is super interesting. They began, I think, something like 4 years ago, got a load of funding and very nearly failed. And the founders moved from San Francisco to Japan and basically locked themselves in a tiny Japanese apartment for 6 months to strip everything out and to start over, which is why it's so bare bones. So the more mainstream it becomes, I sound massively hipster when I say that, but the more people use it, the more integration there's going to be, and I guess the more user friendly it's going to become. One thing that I would say is, if you ever get stuck and you're like, right, I need to create a wiki for all of the information within my company, or I love cooking and I want somewhere, I need a template to be able to store all of my recipes. If you head on down to templates, you'll be able to view all of the templates that have been created by Notion, and also templates which have been created by the broader Notion community. And then no matter what it is that you're looking for, you're going to have like education, you'll have stuff to do with HR, anything to do with sales. And all you need to do is just go through and find whichever one it is that you like. So job board, for example. And you can then just use this template and make whatever changes you want to it. So this will work in the same way as the templates that I've created. It will just pull into your Notion, and you can now make any changes that you want to this, and it will only change on your version of this template. It won't impact anyone else's version, and anyone else who uses that template will only see this template. They won't see the changes that you've made. Does that make sense?
I will say also, like Janelle, with you using Microsoft To-Do List, I find with any piece of technology, people use it for the aesthetic reason. So this here, I find it's simple. It's not, there's not a lot around there. Whereas the Microsoft To-Do List, sometimes they go holy dooly. It's a bit like OneNote when you're doing day in OneNote. It is simple to like visually look at and aesthetically. So I think when you do choose a piece of technology, whether it is Notion or To-Do List or Slack or whatever, it's about how it looks. Like when you first jump into Slack, I'm saying to you, it's friggin' overwhelming, and people that's why people back out. Whereas this, just as a basic user, that someone isn't tech savvy, they'll actually find it quite easy to use.
I really like the look and feel of this. It's very much, I'm not very good with to-do, which is maybe why I don't drive it very much, but this looks far more me. So I'm definitely going to give it a crack and just have a play with it, I think, because I really like the look of it. Feels easy.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's I mean, as was it Stephanie was saying, you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want.
Yeah.
And I'm really picky about how things look. I mean, I'm the kid who was made to redo her homework 3 times because the writing was too small. Like, I am that child. And so I have a very particular way of the way that I want to display my notes, the kind of expectations that I have on formatting and things like that. And Notion just kind of does it. And I know I sound evangelical, and I know that it's a little bit ridiculous how much I love this piece of tech, but it just does what I need it to do and means that I'm no longer stressing about forgetting about something because I've got everything here all in one place. And it's not on a sticky note that may or may not end up on the sole of someone's shoe and then it's gone forever.
Do people still use sticky notes?
Yeah, I love it.
Lauren Bradley is obsessed with sticky notes. She's got them all over her office.
Oh my goodness.
And what she does is she uses the Post-it note app, and she takes a photo of the sticky notes through the Post-it note app and then uploads it into her Trello board.
Yeah.
Wow.
Guys, I'm mindful it's 11 o'clock. Does anyone have any other juicy questions to ask Laura before we go? No.
None from me.
Nope.
Everyone's quiet.
That was fantastic though. Thank you, Laura. That was great.
Oh, you're welcome. So I was just going to say, I'm super active on Instagram.
Okay.
So if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or on LinkedIn. I'm always kind of floating between the two. And Michelle's also got my email address. So if you've got any kind of longer questions, feel free to ping them over to me.
Or they can send you a video or voice message on
Or
Instagram.
then, yes, exactly.
Spend time writing an email. Did I send you something the other day, Kerry? Yes.
Yes, you did. And I was like, oh my God.
So what's really funny is that here in the UAE, voice notes on WhatsApp are a massive thing. Like people don't really text on WhatsApp at all. It's all through voice note. And I've got so used to doing it that now if I'm talking to my boyfriend who's back in London for a little while, it would just be like voice note after voice note after voice note. And I sent one to my sister and she was like, what is this? Why are you sending me a voice note? I was like, because I don't text anymore. I was like, this is what you need to understand. I don't text anymore.
And how much quicker is it? You just get the problem solved or you get the answer across. And I think that's what, so if you need to reach out to Laura, I would encourage you to either Instagram or LinkedIn her a message. And then, and then even if you want a video message, you can also video message and take a video while you're doing it. Go, I can't do this. And she can respond in 4 seconds. So anyway, ladies, it's Tuesday. We've had our hour of Shot of Tech. So thank you for Laura for getting up bright and early. I know you're probably going to go for a run now in the 30 or 40 degrees. Remember, as I always say, be you, do you, and amaze you. And if one piece of technology doesn't suit you, there's another one waiting to meet you tomorrow. So have a fantastic Tuesday. And connect for any questions after the session. But I will send a copy of the recording to everyone. So if they want to go back and have a look at it and slowly do it. But yeah, just have a great Tuesday.